Welcome back, Tasties and Tastettes, to another episode of FTW GT Weekly. We have a banger ahead for you, but if you could first, before the episode, make sure to hit the like button down below. If you could go ahead and give us a subscription, we'd really appreciate that. And one last thing, tell a friend, give a friend, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Until then, we'll see you on the other side.
For those with good taste.
Welcome back, Tasties and Tastettes, to another episode of FTWGT Weekly. It's your boy, Lenny, fresh off of seeing the Batman last night. So make sure to stick around to the end so I can give you some quick thoughts, non-spoilery though, on the movie. But with that being said, let's kick it over to you, Matt. I'm going to say you've had a tougher week than I have, and I'd love to expand on that. But you have any thoughts before we kick off for the people?
Oh, man, I'm just here living the best life that I possibly can. Pretty excited about some fight news that we've been privy to these last couple days, and really excited for some fights that are going on this weekend. But
yeah,
I'm just glad that we get to be back in here, buddy.
Yeah, in here is like a vague term because, again, we are The Boys Go Digital, Volume 2. I think it's going to be even better, although the last one got rave reviews. So, let's keep the legend alive that the boys are better on the internet in the metaverse than they are in the physical, maybe.
We're going to be the opposite of James Cameron, who's known for lowering the bar. We're going to raise that bar. Am I right?
He's also known for going to the bottom of the ocean and seeing the Titanic, I think.
That's how you lower the bar, Len. You got to go deeper than anybody else has been.
Let's talk about lowering the bar, Matt. Let's talk about lowering the bar 6 feet deep, where you're buried to me currently, because we have had a testy week that I want to let the people know about. Let me tell you a story about Matt, everybody out there. Let me tell you a story about our dearest friend, Matty Two Times, okay?
This one's going to get rough. I can already feel it.
I would give Matt the shirt off my back. If we had to walk 1,000 miles in the desert, I would give him my shoes. They'd be a little big for him because I have big feet, and you know what they say. He has small feet, and you know what they say.
Can't believe this guy.
I would give him anything. So in this instance, people, I would just like to share with you that I offered Matt a DVD from my DVD collection, my prized possessions. I offered him one to watch as a gift, and it wasn't like your standard run-of-the-mill Blu-ray thing that they do today. It wasn't even a fucking steelbook that everybody gets all up in arms about still. No, this was like the OG. This was a nicely packed cardboard DVD that has the plastic fold on the side that when you unclip it, it makes a little snapping noise. And it's all color and it looks beautiful. And then you open it up, and on the inside, it has pictures from the movie. And it even tells you the tiles, like the chapters that you're going to get to skip through if you want to watch specific one. And you want to know what movie this is for?
Hold on, buddy.
No, Matt. Nope. You know what it is, though, people? The movie was the most classic part of all of it. I've already sold you just on the aesthetics of it. The aesthetics are beautiful, but the fucking movie is the problem. This is the issue, everybody. I offered Matt a copy of 1999's Chill Factor, featuring Skeet Ulrich and Cuba Gooding Jr.
You said it right.
It's about a ice cream. Of course, I said it right. It's like one of my favorite movies from when I was a little kid. It's an ice cream truck, a bomb that can't go over a certain temperature. If this sounds like Speed, it's because it's basically written right off the plot, except they take it up a level, and there's some really great explosions that are really CGI'd in an era where you didn't CGI things. He fucked up. And in that moment, Matty Two Times, he 6 feet under, dead to me. So I'm trying to figure out, what are you going to do to get back on my good side, Matt?
Well, listen, man, it's not easy becoming a zombie overnight. All right. I've had to try and figure out how to appease someone who has probably one of the most wildest imaginations I've ever known, because your ability to describe things, very descriptive you are, it makes me just come out to be the bad guy in this scenario. And I don't think that that's okay.
Come out to be the bad guy? You were the bad guy.
First and foremost, people have to understand the look of this DVD. The only way I could describe it is it would be something that you'd find on a grandparent's bookshelf, right? I dare I even say, if I opened it on the bookshelf, it probably wouldn't even have the DVD in it. That's how old this DVD cover looked. Now, granted,
no, like now, see, I want to say two things. Are you digging yourself a bigger hole? Is that what you're trying to do?
Are you not allowing me to explain myself?
No, I'm not. I'm
I
not,
just
dude.
let you
Because
go on a tyrant.
I'm the wife in this relationship, and I will talk over you whenever the fuck I please.
Okay. Well, I did kind of dig myself in deeper there, but let's be real, buddy. You sold me on the idea of watching a film that has one Cuba Gooding Jr., who I haven't seen in a film since Radio, and I think I shared this with you. The man played OJ and did a damn good job of it. Some would say too good of a job. So I can't support the man anymore.
There's two ways you have to judge Cuba Gooding Jr. Well, there's one way, really. It's just there's pre like 1999 or pre 2000 and post 2000 Cuba Gooding. They're just two different guys.
You're talking Show Me the Money, Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Yes, exactly.
Completely different.
I'm talking about that era of Cuba Gooding Jr., and that's why it's so insulting to me, because Chill Factor is an all-time classic. And it's honestly like the whole reason that For Those with Good Taste exists is because of movies like Chill Factor.
Wow.
That's the thing. And that's why it's so offensive to me. And people have been trying to figure out, Lenny, like they've been asking me, Matt, in the message boards and stuff, because the rumors out there on our Reddit that there's issues about us. And it's a Reddit, it's on a US based Reddit. It's the Nicaraguan Reddit. You guys wouldn't be able to see it here. But they've been talking about, is there a rift between us? And it's because like Chill Factor is a classic action film from the era that I love action. Like if I've been trying to get you to watch Daylight for years now, that's another classic. Like, I think now if I offered it on DVD, you would just spit it back in my face.
Well, I think you're leaning into the greatest argument that I can give you is I haven't watched a DVD since I couldn't tell you. Like I think I bought Frozen on DVD when it first came out on Blu-ray, dude. And that's the last time I've watched a DVD, honestly.
You know what?
Everything I watch now is digital.
Was that the last one you bought?
No, I want to say I bought, and I'm almost afraid to say it. I bought the Hobbit trilogy, the steelbook that they came out with for that. And I think that's the last DVD. Yeah.
DVD?
Yep.
That's nuts. Okay. The Hobbit DVDs, I had the special edition of the second one. It's like 6 discs. It's insane.
Oh yeah. That steelbook, I think it has like 9 or 12 discs in it.
How many years ago would you say you bought that?
When did the Battle of the Five Kingdoms or Five Kings come out? Probably 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the last time I A, bought a DVD, or 2, watched the DVD.
I don't really want to say this, but I've bought a DVD in the past like year.
I mean, you're known for buying DVDs. You were a guy who, like, I won't give up the store, but this store had a certain DVD section, and you were like, at least once a week going in there and buying DVDs.
No, but I'd be buying Blu-rays.
Okay. Wait, we don't call DVDs blue? Like they're not.
No, those are two separate things, dude. Those are two separate entities. Because like, so in order for me in the past, the thing is like you have to. There's specific reasons why you would be buying something on DVD now, and it's because it's something that was never popular enough to get transferred into Blu-ray. Because Blu-ray would be high definition, DVDs weren't.
Yeah, no, I didn't buy The Hobbit on DVD. Then I bought it on Blu-ray. So
that's where I was confused by you.
I bought it on disc.
Lord of the Rings, because when I was saying I got the Lord of the Rings, the second movie. What's that? The Twin Towers? No,
Two Towers. Whoa, careful, dude. Too close. Too close to home, dude. Take it easy.
Right. Whoops. Yeah, the Two Towers. I got that on DVD. I was like, that's legit. Like it's like 6 discs. But yeah, I bought a movie in the past like year on DVD on Amazon because I couldn't find it anywhere digital.
But let's get down to the real grit of all this, Len. I've made probably 500,000 recommendations for you to watch, and I didn't have to hand you a DVD to do so. I just gave you my sad puppy dog eyes, and it's never been enough to get you to watch what I want to watch.
I think I've watched a recommendation of yours more recently than you've watched a recommendation of mine.
Poppycock.
Poppycock?
Yeah, we
What's
watched
the
Uncharted.
poppycock? Hmm?
We watched Uncharted. That was at a recommendation of yours.
Oh, get the fuck get the
Yeah,
fuck out of
yeah.
here.
And I
You
paid to see
cannot
that.
say that was at my behest.
Yeah, dude, you were like, hey, Tom Holland's so great, dude. Did you see him in Spider-Man No Way Home? He's incredible. Did you know he's got a British accent?
Cheerio, mate.
I was waiting for your rebuttal. You were going to be like, I actually always knew that he had a British accent, damn it.
No, chip, cheerio, mate.
Hey,
No,
old buff, you do know what?
is this a signal that you're never going to apologize to me and we should just move on to Uncharted?
I think that this should be a signal that I shouldn't have to apologize. I think perspective is really important. I think you know that you've turned me down half a dozen times at least within the last year of watching things. So I think me turning away your dusty looking DVD, and we didn't even
It
address the
wasn't
fact
dusty.
of who gave it back to you. Like I'm supposed to take it in possession after that guy? Yeah, right. I'm all set,
So
dude.
if it was dusty, it's his fault, by the
That's what
way.
I'm
Like, because
saying.
I would have he's had it for months, at least
Listen,
4.
I'm going to explain to you why I don't trust that man, and it's because he can spend a week in Hawaii and not tan. That's a problem.
I mean, he had a slight bronze to him. That might have been a
No,
spray tan.
if anything, he came back lighter, and you and I both know it.
All right, Uncharted. Let's move along here. If the people could, though, either in a comment down below or somewhere out there, if you could just let us know who is right in this instance. If Matt's an asshole because I offered him a gift, a treasure, a national treasure. Wink, wink.
Mind you, you got so emotional that you killed me off. I didn't even get a second season. Like you were just like 6 feet
Bro, you're on
under.
like season 7.
You're done. Yeah,
You're
this
on
is
like
the
season
longest
7.
running TV show. Sorry.
Yeah, so Uncharted came out last week. We didn't get a chance to record anything. And so here we are. So let's kind of get into it a little bit. I've seen it twice. Matt has seen it once.
Exactly
And
once.
what'd you think, buddy?
I came out of the theater pleasantly surprised, Len. I think I've gone into movies just having a certain level of expectation now, trying not to get myself too excited. And this was one of those films that I already went into it with a little bit of negative thought as much as I didn't want to, but I came away feeling a lot better about it. How about yourself?
This is for me like one of those perfect instances of you can't just trust reviews.
Yeah.
It reviews is like the fucking news at this point. Like it's just you don't know what you're getting is like a real like thing or a fake thing or like like it's like seeing the picture of the Klitschko brothers fighting with the Ukraine, and it's like a picture from 10 years ago that they took. Not I know that they are fighting people, so
I
you
know
don't
what
have
you
to
mean,
correct
though.
me on that, but like the picture everybody was sharing around was like a picture that's like really old. It's the same thing with this. You just can't like you can't take reviews at face value because you don't know what they're looking for. And this is where like for those with good taste is a very subjective thing. Like I think I have good taste. Matt, you have great taste. The
Thanks,
people
buddy.
watching us obviously have really good taste, but like everybody's taste is their own. Like you're gonna like some shit I don't like, and like you can't always take it at that because that movie, I think for the most part, has gotten trashed.
Yeah, I did
Trashed by
not
the
read good
people.
things.
I
Mark
want to
Wahlberg
look.
might want to cancel his social media after what I've read.
I want to look up Rotten Tomatoes really quick for Uncharted, just for kicks, because then I'll share some of my thoughts on it here. And again, I'm a long-standing fan of the this movie. This is actually perfect. So I'm a long-standing fan
Of the
of the
franchise.
franchise.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody seeing this? Matt, you got it?
Boom, baby. They should be able to see it too.
So how crazy is this? That this movie is a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. But Matt, can you just share with the people who are listening what the audience score is on this movie?
Yeah, it's pretty insane, and you couldn't be on an opposite side of the spectrum. The audience is scoring this at 90%, Len. So it's damn near almost 100% there, buddy.
Because what is wrong with this movie? How are we going to give it a bad like review? I'm not saying that like you can sit there and be like, you're not going to compare this to like I referenced the fucking Titanic earlier, right? Like there is no performance in this movie that is like Leo in the Titanic. I promise you that, right? Like you're not getting like the Departed where every single fucking actor is going to get some type of award nomination. It's not that type of a thing. But how can we be so unaligned from a review standpoint? An aggregate review comes out to average 40% when the people over 2,500 people have rated this movie at 90%. So right around 9 out of 10 for this movie. And
Lenny,
that
can I
would
rant it
not
real
go
quick?
as, yeah, hop in, dude. I'm ranting.
Yeah,
You can
like
rant as well.
I just feel like in color me one of these people that is guilty of doing it, but I think nowadays we get so much content thrown at us that we are quick to, assume or throw judgment out there based on the content that we're taking in. And we're not really taking everything the way that we're not taking in the content the way that we should. I have a great opportunity to go on Hey Archer Live this week. For anybody who's tuning in, it'll be this coming Thursday. By the time you watch this, it should be later on tonight, 8 p.m. March 3rd, right? Yeah, just making sure I got my dates right. But I'm going there to talk some boba. And, I think that one of the tough things about shows and movies that we watch nowadays is everybody has these unrealistic expectations of what they want it to be, how they want it to tie into the lore, who's going to, win awards after it. Where at the end of the day, if you go into Uncharted and you're hoping that it's a good movie and you're hoping to see some great action, you're looking to ride the wave that is Tom Holland right now, then Uncharted is exactly that. When you leave the theater, if you have anything but, wow, that's a good movie. If that's not your sentiment, I think that you went into it looking for something wrong. Whereas that's the common consensus nowadays is we go into it very critically and we want to pass judgment. This was one of those that I think that 40% just doesn't make sense. This is like a split decision when the champion's done a full night's work. You know what I mean?
Listen, I would say as a person, again, who's a fan of both, getting into a little bit more specifics of it, it's like this movie, I think, captures a lot of what people love about the game. And I think that's an important thing in affecting that audience scores is like, a movie isn't going to be always critically great, but if it knows the audience it's trying to capture, it can still be a very good movie. And this movie's fun. It has just enough callbacks to the video game without being like fucking, I don't know, Detective Pikachu, for instance, where it just felt like every single part of the movie is just like a wink and a
Figment of
nod.
somebody's imagination. Yeah.
It's just like a crammed full of little, like, I think it was what I was afraid Free Guy, for instance, would be. By the time you got all the trailers and everything for Free Guy, you felt like it was going to be just a bunch of nostalgic, like, money grab type movie, and it ends up being a lot better than it was because I think it knew what it was. And I think Ryan Reynolds, comparatively, it does a lot of that well. With clearly I don't love Detective Pikachu, but yeah, this movie from the very beginning, that opening scene with in spoilers to an extent, I don't think there's anything that we really need to spoil here, but from the very beginning, like, obviously the thing you've seen in the trailer, the dropping out of the back of the plane, like, that's straight out of the video game, like we've known the whole time. But moving on from that, it's drawn me to play the fourth game over again. And there's a lot of the stuff in the movie, it doesn't line up exactly. They've taken their own liberty with the story, which they should, because it doesn't have to be the same exact thing, but they've taken a lot of inspiration directly from the game. I saw Tom Holland do a interview where he got to play Uncharted 4, and he was talking about specifically like the fourth game, which I could tell for the first time watching it was like where they drew almost 80 to 90% of their inspiration for this movie.
And that's, I think, the whole point of taking some of this source material and trying to make it something good is it's supposed to be there to guide you. It's not there to be the end all be all, the final say. I think that this movie, while I don't remember the games very vividly, I know that Nathan Drake was played very well. I thought that even Mark Wahlberg as Sully really added something to the character that maybe I just wasn't expecting.
I should probably give my thoughts on him. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of leading you in there, but to finish my point, it's from the opening scene to when they revisit that scene in the movie, everything is just put together very well. It's not done for fan service, and it doesn't seem rushed, which I think is something that can really that can happen a lot when you look at some of these films.
To its credit, I think the cast is a large portion. I think what we're seeing is Tom Holland is ascending to like a different level as far as action stars and as far as acting stars. Like, he is that next generation, I think, of Hollywood guys, most recently people who have kind of ascended, and they ascended later than Tom Holland has. Like Tom Holland might be in that, like we could be 15 years from now talking about Tom Holland like in that Leo stratosphere
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
if he can do like choose the right movies along the way and associate himself with the right stuff, he's going to have the box office accolades because he's going to be involved in so much huge Marvel business. But then going out and basically being maybe the first video game adaptation to truly be successful and good. That's huge as well. It's not a failure. I was going to show here really quickly the box office. So we're looking at it approaching $220 million globally. So It's already made money at this point.
Do we know what the budget was on this one?
I could find it out fairly quickly, I'm sure. So yeah, like it's clear that people have been into it and have been going out and seeing it, and I think that just goes to show that his stardom has ascended and it's creating a buzz. The budget was 120 million, so we're already profitable by two. And I figure this movie has a little bit more run in it, right?
Yeah, and I think it's
funny.
To your point, like, yeah, that's. Let me see what it says. Yeah, I just don't get it.
Why is this not fun? It's not as good as like fucking Indiana Jones, right? But Matt, you were gonna compare it to a movie, and I think it's a fair comparison if you want to.
Man, like to see a review like that, I just don't understand what's not fun about this film. Even while we were watching it, I left the theater feeling like this is a more updated version, a better, more interesting version of National Treasure. And that's saying something, because I genuinely enjoyed National Treasure as a film. And again, one of those films where 1 and 2 absolutely nailed it.
So it's definitely like, so it's National Treasure in the treasure hunting aspect of it, but
right. Indiana Jones in
like,
the aspect of how everything happens.
But Tom Holland can do so much more physically that he's able to take it a level above. I think in terms of two things, I guess. So on the positive end, Tom Holland's a much better action star in terms of his own physical abilities. So he outweighs Nicolas Cage. The one thing I would say is I think there's a little bit more complexity at times to the National Treasure like mystery stuff that they're doing, but that's because you have to fill in some gaps because of the lack of physicality that you're going to get from Nicolas Cage.
And I'm sorry, to that point, that there wasn't action for sake of action in this film. Everything had a point to it. All of it tied directly into the storyline and the Hansel and Gretel aspect of picking up every breadcrumb to make sure that they're getting to the right place. And even the bad guys that are along for the ride, there isn't one bit of it that's cheesy. There isn't one bit of it that seems like they just did something for the sake of it. Her name is escaping me, but I know you're going to nail it. Lead villain for the girl who was in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. She played.
Oh, the girl, the
blonde badass.
Sabrina Carpenter, the main character in Sabrina.
No. The girl who played the female.
Zoe.
I think that's her name. Yeah,
or Braddock. Which one?
Braddock. That's the name I'm looking for.
Tati Gabriel.
So that she has done so many different projects. She was in You season 3, more recently, opposite our buddy Joe. And she's also done.
Well, that's what she's from. I was trying to figure out the whole time what I knew her from. That's what it is.
She's been able to showcase just a wealth of skills when it comes to being able to play different roles. And I think her being this badass treasure hunter who was constantly a thorn in their side, she looked the part, she played the part, and did a great job with it.
And so finally, like the Mark Wahlberg thing, which has been my biggest criticism along the way. And yeah, like they've changed him in the story a little bit in terms of like, I think they've nailed him in terms of his relation to Drake. The difference is in the game that you get more of him as he meets Nate at a younger point in his life in the games. Like Nate's a lot younger in the games, so that's where this maybe doesn't line up as much, that their age gap is a lot closer it feels like in this, to where there's a big brother aspect to it, or like where I think there's more of a fatherly relationship in a way, or an uncle relationship in the game.
I think it did a good job of bordering both, where it wasn't
Yeah.
too much, right?
You're going to get them growing out more, because this movie, there's plenty of reasons, obviously, for Drake to not trust. Fill in a name for me.
Sully.
Sully, thank you.
Yeah.
But so my favorite part of the movie, actually, and Mark Wahlberg made this a big part for me, is the fight sequence at the end on the ship. I think is a really high point for this movie. And it's do you know the part I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where the two of them realize that they have to go fight the people on the boat. I thought the choreographing in that fight scene and the timing and the way everything was done was just awesome. Like the way you would go from, Tom Holland fighting this guy, and 2 seconds ago you've seen Mark Wahlberg go into a room, and then as soon as Tom Holland hits the wall, the door next to him swings open, and you start following Mark Wahlberg go the other direction, yes. And like the give and take of that scene was really, really well. And I think what makes this movie as successful as it is they're both believable when they're in action scenes, because we've seen them both do action. They're both funny guys. Mark Wahlberg's shown time and time again, and this role is a lot more in his wheelhouse, that when he has somebody strong opposite him, he's a very funny actor. Denzel Washington in Two Guns, obviously, like the other guys. And what's the other Will Ferrell that they do together?
So you've got the other guys, and then you've got Daddy's Home.
Daddy's Home. Yeah. Like, so like, he has these, like, if he gets somebody who can go quick humor with him back and forth, Ted is another example of, like, obviously it's Seth MacFarlane, but like he has that humor down.
The witty banter, they're able to go back and forth and really make something special. I think Mark Wahlberg did a good job of not doing Mark Wahlberg things in this movie as much, right? I think we definitely got to see Mark Wahlberg as Mark Wahlberg, but
it's not his movie. You
and I both had a fear that when he stepped into this role, that it was going to be something that kind of overshadowed Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, and to have him come out of it. Yes, baby. Agua. Okay. Every bit of it showed that he can continue to adapt, and not only the choreography of the boat scene, but when we talk about exceeding expectations, I was a little bit fearful that would be a cheesy part of the movie. Oh, we've got these boats swinging in the air. Our guys have to survive everything, right? And they just do an amazing job at putting that fight together.
Yeah, I think with some of those action sequences, you feel like the tension to them. They do a good job. I think the only negative I do think is that they definitely saved on the budget a little bit on some of the CGI. Like when they're falling through the sky and some of that, you can just, it's just very
even when Mark Wahlberg's ascending, I don't want to blow anything up, but when he's ascending up towards the helicopter, it doesn't look great. And there's a few moments in there where you wonder where the budget went.
We're obviously like spoiled because of the the Marvel movies and everything.
I'm gonna grab her water bottle real quick. Go ahead.
Of course, yeah. Let her get her agua, baby. Hello, Soph. Now we just only see her on the camera. I think that's one of those things you have to sacrifice now to make movies like this profitable. I'm sure the next Uncharted movie that comes will have a significantly higher budget that comes tagged along with it. I'll have to probably repeat this a little bit when Matt gets back, or he's getting back perfectly now. So, Matt, the one thing I was going to mention that this movie does that's kind of interesting, the post credit for this movie is in the trailer. Did you think that was interesting?
Yeah, I thought that was going to be just like a haha moment that we got at the end, kind of like to wrap up the movie.
Yeah, they released that before the movie was out.
Very strange that it comes up towards the end credit that's the big, like the small reveal, right?
The very last credit is, and you get a longer part of that scene, but you get the reveal of Sully with the mustache is the post-credit scene to this movie. They set up a ton of like stuff for a follow-up movie to this. It's clearly made enough money, so I'd be excited to get a couple more sequels.
I was going to ask you about that post-credit scene because I knew that you and I had made the jokes about what that scene is about, and I don't think it's a spoiler at this point, right? So 3, 2, 1, you get to see him with the mustache. Um,
Very
but to your sorry, yeah, I missed that. But did you think that they executed that really well? Obviously they set up future films, but it doesn't seem forced or anything like that. I mean, even that scene was just really well put together.
Well, I mean, listen, this is the same thing I've always said about a game like Metal Gear Solid, that there's certain games that are so cinematic that they lend themselves to movies very well if you want to follow close to what the people who wrote them already gave you. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with books, right? It's the same thing with why like a Harry Potter is successful to a point. It's like you've been given the script already in a way. So what this movie is done now is, like I said, you kind of start in reverse because the fourth game gives more backstory to Drake than you're given in the first few. The first few games, or the first two at least, you're really just thrown into a scenario. Like you're thrown into a reporter who's following a treasure hunter, and that's how you're introduced to Drake. And you're introduced to Ellie, who isn't even used in this movie, rather. Like his main love interest isn't even introduced yet, so you're almost guaranteed to get a sequel as long as it's made money, right? Chloe's great, and Chloe has a bigger point in the franchise. She even has her own standalone game, so there's stuff that they can still do with her. Sophia Taylor Ali is her name. I liked her.
She did a great job. Being able to be opposite those two isn't easy. And I thought she held her own very well.
She did well, yeah. So you started off with the fourth game. I imagine you're going to go into now the first game storyline a little bit. They're clearly going to take liberties. They're not using the same villains, but they're using the same storylines, it seems. I would be disappointed if they go away from it, because the first game has it has some really, really awesome action sequences, from their plane crashing to like it introduces more of a mythical aspect that this movie didn't play with at all. There's definitely that. Uncharted has that stuff, like curses that come along with their treasures, and more of that Indiana Jones.
The supernatural aspect of it.
Exactly. I give it a big thumbs up, though. It passed the taste test for me. I would recommend anybody, especially who is a fan of the games, to give it a shot. Like, go into it open-minded. And I think you'll enjoy it. But even if you're just a fan of like that treasure hunter action movie, definitely check it out.
Definitely check it out, and don't be scared off by the reviews. I want to get in touch with whoever's in charge over there of Rotten Tomatoes, because this whole thing seems like a sham.
Yeah, everybody's known that's bullshit for a while now.
Like, you can't be that far off the mark. Like, who's watching this film and giving it 40% reviews when you have, the people have spoken type of thing, where you got 90% difference? Like, it's crazy.
The one other thing I was gonna throw out here before we move on to our next topic is, before the movie, we got another trailer for Morbius, and I don't think I've ever seen the same trailer so many times. It's like, Venom, I feel like took forever for it to come out, but we saw like a ton of the movie before it finally came out. There's a bunch of movies like that you just see way too much of it. Instead, with Morbius, I've just seen the same trailer since, I want to say, September, because the movie was supposed to come out in late
I was going to
November,
say
December.
It's felt like a year, because I almost remember us doing a trailer reaction for this film last year, and it's I haven't seen anything different, aside from you get a little bit more of the actual like creature, so to speak, in some of these trailers, but they're not really giving you anything different.
You know what it was, like No Time to Die, how that kept getting pushed back because of the pandemic. We saw that trailer 900 times. This feels like a lot like that, and I've heard there's going to be a final trailer like that comes out because the movie's out in April, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not optimistic on this one. I'm sure when you talk to our boy Archer, sweet nerd affiliated merch, by the way, super dope. Check it out in his store. I think it's heyarcher.com. Maybe it's nerdaffiliated.com. Try both of them. Maybe he gets money off either one or both.
Just check out the page. That's the best way to find anything, right? There you go.
But I'm sure he feels the same way. Like these trailers are not doing it any justice. I can't hear I am Venom like anymore, dude. I'm so sick of it.
No, man, you hit the nail with the hammer there, because I think it's just a Sony thing. Like, maybe they're just not. Maybe they got to get out of the superhero business. Like, I don't see them doing anything great with it. You know, you and I talked about Venom previously, and it's like Morbius is just going to be another installment of me not really giving a damn about it because it's probably not going to be canon, or it's going to be a small part of canon, or you know, if Jared Leto does a good job with this, who knows if he's even going to continue the role? There's just so many different question marks to it, and Sony just has never done a good job with their properties. Cautiously optimistic, as I always will be when it goes into like watching a movie, but to your point, the trailers aren't helping me at all.
Yeah. So speaking of people's websites, michaelbispingdoc.com is going to be featuring shortly a documentary.
Is that the website name?
Yeah, it is. I noticed
Jeez.
it at the very end of the trailer. It says like it's going to be available digital or for physical copy or for rent or purchase next month. Let me check when it's actually available. But yeah, so Michael Bisping has a documentary coming out. For those of you who are a movie fan, not as much of a sports fan, Michael Bisping is a UFC fighter who has been around forever. He's now a commentator. He fought through a lot of wars, had a lot of great moments, a lot of low moments. Biggest one probably being a viral knockout from Dan Henderson that most people have seen. He then had his eye literally basically knocked out of the socket by a steroided up Vitor Belfort, TRT
Tour.
And recovered from that to not only come back and fight again, but have some of the best year, like the best year or two of his career, actually winning a title on short notice. The documentary, it comes out on March 21st. Matt, what did you think of the trailer?
Well, my first reaction to it, Len, was that this seemed like an actual movie. Like if I didn't know who Michael Bisping was, baby, I would have absolutely no idea that this like was a fake story, right? This looks like when I think of Mark Wahlberg and The Fighter. Hold on, let me take a time out real quick. She's going insane right now. Yeah, man, after watching the first trailer, if I didn't know who Michael Bisping was, this movie would look like an actual Hollywood film. From start to finish, it sounds like an underdog story. For anybody who doesn't know who Michael Bisping is, if you're just into fight movies like The Fighter or Southpaw, this kind of ticks all of those boxes. But when you're watching the trailer, from start to finish, if you didn't, have any idea who Michael Bisping was, you just knew that he was a fighter, this type of story can't be written, and it's actually his life. So you and I have been able to kind of take this ride with him as fans. We were there when he lost his eye. We were there when he got knocked out cold. We were there when he won the title. This gives a great glimpse into how it all came to be and gives you a great look into the person that Michael Bisping is now. Even as a commentator, he still gets a lot of critiques, but somebody who's constantly fighting it has always been an underdog. So it's great to see him shine.
I think Michael Bisping's best quality is what made him hated for so long. This guy was the biggest villain in the UFC in like 2007 to like 2010 or 11, probably. Between coming off The Ultimate Fighter, which he won season 3, I believe. He also then headlined one of the first like non-title UFC pay-per-views. It was in his native home. He fought Rashad Evans, I believe.
I was gonna say it was against Rashad Evans.
He had that. He had the moment with Jorge Rivera where he spits on his cornerman outside the cage after the fight's over. And then all the buildup on the Ultimate Fighter coaching opposite Dan Henderson, like he was the most hated guy out there. And it was because he didn't shut the fuck up and because he was brash and he talked shit and all of that. But through longevity, he's shown that he can back that up. And I think over time, because of how genuine it wasn't a shtick like you'll see from a guy like Colby Covington, who we'll talk about later. There was nothing manufactured about Michael Bisping, and I think that ended up being his greatest quality now, even post-career, because he's able to have a podcast, he's able to have his YouTube platform, also do the UFC stuff, he's starring in movies, and it's all because when you get Michael Bisping, you know what you're getting, to a fault at times. Like he says stuff and has to go back on it a lot, like because he kind of shoots from the hip on some things, and he can be a bit offensive, but I think we all kind of appreciate it now. And so, yeah, this story is something else. Like I'm really, really excited for it. I hadn't watched the trailer until an hour ago now. It looked great. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please go ahead and take a look.
Yeah, Michael Bisping's one of the few people that could get knocked out cold, and people actually are excited for it. So to see this story come out and see him really get his flowers, so to speak, I recommend everybody else go check it out.
I mean, whether they like you or hate you, it's really like, do they want to watch you fight? And I think he is a person who, in a time where the UFC was in between superstars, because he just kind of bridges that gap between the Chuck Liddells and the Randy Couture's into the John Joneses of the world. You know, I think he bridges that gap pretty well for them. So,
and you can't hate a guy who lost an eye, right? Like,
no. Props to him. Huge moment. Like, he fought in the Wild Wild West and then won a championship as like in the USADA era. So, I mean, we know he's a clean athlete too. With that being said, let's move along, buddy. Let's get into some actual fight talk. Do we want to jump right into UFC 272, or do you want to maybe hit some current events?
Let's hit some current events before we hit them with the main event, because there's been a lot of crazy things going on, and people don't really know what's going on unless we fill them in on it. So we might as well start there.
Cool.
So I'll start with boxing news. You know, you made a joke about the Klitschko brothers fighting during the invasion of the Ukraine. A lot of Ukrainian superstars going back to fight for their country. Nothing better than that. But to get back to the fight game, the boxing game, Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte has been marked official for the next big heavyweight fight. So no, Anthony Joshua is not getting his ticket to the big dance. No more Deontay Wilder. And after this fight, rumor has it, and the rumor comes straight from the pig's mouth or the horse's mouth himself, is that this will be Tyson Fury's last fight. He will be retiring. The man says he's got $150 million in the bank. He's got his good health. He's got his sobriety, and that's enough for him to call it quits after knocking out Dillian Whyte, which is his prediction.
Well, two things I'll ask here. So this is the same person. Like, they had a press conference yesterday, and I believe that is it Dillian Whyte, with the way it's spelt? But I believe he didn't show up.
I'm going to go with Dylan on that one, but no, he didn't show up.
Do we know why?
I don't actually know. I had seen some rumors that he had a scare from his camp. So people within his camp might have had COVID. So he's limiting the actual, face appearances that he's making. Other talks are that it might be a little bit of a ploy or a mind game, but you and I both know in the fight game, you don't miss promos. So it'll be interesting to see what comes next.
It wouldn't make sense to, like, from a promotional standpoint, why would you not show up to the press conference? I'm surprised they went on with it without him being there. But second question,
Tyson Fury at the end of the day is the big ticket,
show,
right?
Yeah. I'll ask you as our boxing pundit: is Dillian Whyte a serious contender?
At this point, Lenny's the only serious contender, right? We had mentioned Alexander Usyk, who, much respect to him, has taken himself out of any discussions for any potential fights because of what's happening over in Europe and in the Ukraine right now. So this is the best hope that we have right now for a contender, for someone to challenge Tyson Fury. And to hear that this could potentially be his last fight, I think Tyson knows it as well. This is probably the last hurrah of that heavyweight division. And it's on, Dylan's shoulders to surprise the boxing world, because he's coming up against what a lot of people believe to be the pound for pound best.
Interesting. Okay. Any other boxing news we have going on? Did something get announced with Lomachenko or some shit? I don't know.
No, Vasyl Lomachenko took himself out of the fighting ring as well. Reason? So yeah, the big news: all the Ukrainian superstars going back home to fight for their homeland. Nothing but respect for those guys. But yeah, it's really only a matter of time before we get updates on what's happening with this. But to hear that two of boxing's biggest names, and they may not be big names as far as the mainstream media, but these are two title holders, two lineal champions, or champions to be in the face of Lomachenko going back and to get his titles. But these guys have put their careers on hold, and they're fighting for Mother Ukraine.
Cool. So next up is the hottest topic in MMA right now, and we won't spend too long here, because I understand it's a topic you don't really you shouldn't really make jokes about. or anything. And obviously it's a topic you probably shouldn't be like horribly undereducated on and talking about, but I'm going to do it anyways. Uh, so you former UFC heavyweight champion, current professional wrestler Cain Velasquez has recently been arrested on attempted murder this past couple of days. And was it in California or was it in New
It was in
Mexico?
San Jose, California.
California. Okay. Um, right now, at the time, there was no story out. It was just attempted murder and he'd been arrested. And I think we all in unison were like, Cain Velasquez seems like the nicest guy on earth and like super chill. I can't imagine him in a fit of rage, like shooting somebody. Since then, you've heard the details that it was a case of, and this is where I'll ask you to fill in some blanks for me, because as I've said, and I'll put this disclaimer out there as always, I read headlines. You actually got about a paragraph further of reading out of me on this one. So that's where I'm going to have one follow-up take, and it's probably a little controversial, but I just wanted to ask it anyways, because I'm a contrarian and I just, want to kind of point some stuff out on both ends of the spectrum. But I believe the story is that there was a person he was chasing who had molested a family member of his. And in turn, I don't know if they both shot at each other, but I know at least he shot at the two parties and ended up hitting one of them in non-life threatening, fortunately, fashion. Am I mostly right?
No, you've nailed most of it so far, and I think that the headlines that first came out on this news shared exactly that. I'm curious, what is the controversial take that you might have? Because I think we may have the same.
Well, I think the main sentiment that has come from most of the Twitter stuff and things like that I've read, or Instagram that's like free Cain and all of this, is that generally I think we all agree that when there's, and even like there's code in like jail for this, right? That when you molest a child or something of that nature, that there is no repercussion that's too steep in that instance. And I of course I empathize with that, and that's where I'm not going to be controversial in that regard. Like him shooting at somebody who molested a family member of his, I don't know if it was his kids or whatever it was.
So Len, I'll fill in some gaps there, and I just wanted to get your insight before hearing all this, because I think that headline is enough for anyone. And you mentioned, the code of conduct in prison about these people not being safe because of what a horrendous act it is. The reports have come out that it's Cain Velasquez's 4-year-old son. So, the first bit of news that came out was that it was a close relative. Then they said it was somebody in his immediate family. And now we're coming to find out that it's his 4-year-old kid.
Yeah, that's
news coming out that it was someone who is charged with the care of the kid at a daycare. So even more so, when you talk about the gross of the gross, the worst of the worst, it's someone who's being trusted with the care of this child and doesn't really do a good job of it. Yep. And then when you think about the news that's coming out, is that everybody's in support of Cain. Whether it was, whether he killed a guy, almost killed the guy walked away. I think at the end of the day, no one's going to disagree with someone for protecting their family. 100% righteous act when you look at what a father might be feeling during all that. So I won't dive too much into it, because honestly, not enough of my business. But what I will say is you do hope that, the Cain Velasquez that we know wouldn't hurt a soul. It's funny to say when, he beat people up for a living. But when you also look at what's been done, you can't really blame someone, right? I think a lot more information has to come from this in order for us to get the whole picture. But just on a surface level, I would say I stand with Cain Velasquez if that's the case. And I do hope that, this issue gets resolved. And, at the end of the day, the news that is just comes out, because anything that has to do with this story is absolutely horrific. And you hope that, the child is safe. You're hoping that Cain is in the right in some way, shape, or form. But it's just going to be interesting to see what comes out of this.
So here is my controversial take. Like, now that we've gotten all the the obvious out of the way, that I don't think either one of us are unaware of the circumstances surrounding that much of why you would be that upset and why this might be an acceptable thing. My concern here is the person who he shot is not the person who molested the kid. That is the case that I believe is true. He shot the stepfather of the abuser. So when we say free Cain, I just wonder, where's the line? Like where do we say it's acceptable to shoot somebody? Because this isn't the person who molested your child. And maybe this person was hiding it. I don't know all the circumstances, right? I don't know, but the same obligation, I think that you, and this is a stepfather versus a blood father, I suppose, right? But the same way you would defend your child because they went through that, I think there's some obligation on the other side to where, like, even though that person's the abuser and they're wrong, I'm sure that the father on that side, the same way we recently, this isn't nearly like the same. It's similar in a way to me. Like, what was the girl who got murdered by her boyfriend?
I don't remember her first name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
So he
Colby or
clearly
Caitlin?
murdered. He clearly murders this girl, right?
Yeah.
Brian Laundrie. That is
Yeah,
name?
there you go. You got the guy's name right.
He clearly murders the girl, and the family knows this. And what did they do, Matt? Like, did they bring him to the cops?
No. And what's worse is they covered him. They covered for him, gave him an opportunity to escape.
And I just think that, like, I don't know if this person was covering it up. Maybe there is a reason that he got shot, but I just think it's a little quick to be being like free Cain because he went and shot at a person who molested his kid. The person who got shot wasn't the person who molested your kid, and like maybe you just have some shit aim, Cain. I don't know, but
so I think it's important for me to just reiterate, like, while I say I stand with Cain, that free Cain and I stand with Cain are two different things to me. But I think everybody takes responsibility.
We're talking about headlines that say, let me show this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, headlines. Free Cain. Fighters rally behind Velasquez after alleged shooting to shows up. Basically, this is saying, like, they want him. They want to. I saw something that was like drop all charges.
Yeah. See, this is where I stop it.
Drop all charges.
I'm gonna jump in front of this train and say, while I say I stand with Cain, whatever his intentions might be, whatever the reasoning might be, I'm also a huge advocate of taking responsibility for your actions. So you don't attempt what he did without knowing that there's going to be some repercussions.
Well, so that's my thing, right? Like, if he, dude, like, I'm trying to teeter a line because I don't want to be like insensitive to this, right?
But this is.
Yeah, I'm just like, for one, I'm going to talk about Batman in a little bit. Like, vigilantes are for movies. Like, vigilantes aren't for real life. If everybody got to be a fucking vigilante, there'd be a lot more people unintentionally shot dead out there. And this is a perfect example of this guy went to shoot the person who's molesting his kid, and in turn shot somebody else who didn't do that act, who might be guilty of something else. But where do we draw the line when you get to just fucking shoot somebody? Right. And furthermore, I would think that Cain Velasquez doesn't take his gun and go to try and kill somebody without knowing in the back of his head, I'm willing to go to jail because this motherfucker touched my kid. And I just think that's where it's like free Cain. It's like, no, like, there always should be a repercussion if you shoot somebody. There should always be a repercussion for that. Props to him if that's his kid and his kid went through that, for doing what I think, you're a father, I'm not, but like doing what I think any of us in that situation. That's why there is so many people saying free Cain and all of that. But let's not like pretend like he didn't actually shoot a person.
You can't have one without the other, Len. And this is where we live in this unrealistic. We live in this unrealistic society where you get your cake and you eat it too, right? They want justice for Cain, but then they also want Cain to get off scot-free. Those two things aren't one and the same. It's
the same law system, and it's the same law system that chooses you guilty for molesting, for shooting, for terrorism.
Now this is where all of this goes through the judicial system. He'll go to court. He'll be judged by a jury of his peers. All of this is going to happen, and whatever that verdict ends up being, where we are right now is that Cain shot a person. To your point, whether that person was in the wrong or not, Cain Velasquez attempted to kill a person. There is no law that says if there is rightful cause besides, let's say, self-defense, that you are allowed to take a person's life.
Yeah. And the facts are going to come out from this, right? But that mug shot of him, let's see if I can show this.
It's a very cavalier look, Len. And that's
a man
who knew what he did.
From the very beginning of seeing this mugshot, I said to myself, that does not look like a guy who is remorseful. Nope. And when you find out why he did it, I don't think he should be remorseful for it. But he definitely looks like a person who's okay with the decision he made. And I think he would know the outcome that would come along with this,
Big time, man. And that picture, Sophie, wait a second. That picture does enough to let you know that, like, the man knew what he was getting himself into.
We are holding up young Soph's day so hard right now.
Hold on 1 second, dude. Let me tell you what, Len, you look at a guy like that in a mugshot, the guy knows where he's going. This to me looks like someone that took action and is now ready to deal with the responsibilities. The unfortunate part is I don't think he got what he wanted. So you're hoping that this doesn't lead to anything else happening. I mean, we don't have the full story, and I'm sure we'll put together a better idea of our thoughts and judgments afterwards. But, attempted murder is a pretty serious situation. So all the hashtag free Cains, the fighters wanting to clear Cain's name. If you're really his friend, if you really know him, you got to understand what he's going through and just sit on the sidelines. Don't make a judgment. Don't put out hashtags. Let's just keep our mouths shut and let's see what's happening. Hope for the best for this man.
Well, I think it's okay.
If he's not in the wrong, then it is what it is.
I think it's okay. I think I saw like Deron Wynn or somebody like that who comes from that, that AKA camp, saying like, I know the type of man that Cain is, and like, like I stand by him. It's okay to say like, I stand by him. I just think like free Cain is a crazy thing to say when like he shot somebody. Like that's, I don't know. But again, I feel for the man, and like nobody should go through any of that stuff. But it's just, I think that's my controversial take of the week. Let's get on to lighter news though. We have a big weekend ahead of us. It's been a little bit of tumultuous couple of days for this fight card. We have UFC 272 this weekend, headlined by Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington in a huge grudge match, a long time in the making. But really quickly, Matt, I wanted to talk about RDA and Rafael Pfizer. Is that his name? Rafael recently got some COVID, a little bit of the vid, and he had to drop out of this fight. Yeah, he got all of it the week of his fight. So unfortunately, we're still getting casualties in the sports world to this. So on short notice, there was a lot of speculation on who was going to be filling in for this fight. We ended up, it was going to be Islam Makhachev, and I think that was going to be the best case scenario. These guys have been going back and forth for a long time, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't get the job done, and now we're getting RDA versus Renato Moicano.
Lenny, I want to get your take on this, buddy, because this was a little bit of a roller coaster ride after Fiziev pulled out, right? We got the news that he had COVID, and Islam Makhachev, it seemed like he was, he wasn't waiting on a beat. As soon as he got the news, he was like, hey, RDA, we got some beef to settle. You down, man? And It seemed like RDA was ready for it. So what do you think fell through, and why aren't we seeing this fight happening this weekend?
I think it's probably a combination of two things. I think it's probably a combination of money, that Islam was probably looking for more money on short notice. And secondly, I think it might have come down to weight. Islam wanted it at 170, whereas RDA said, like, let's go to the division that your team is making famous, 165, and let's fight at that weight class. I think it's funny if Islam wasn't willing to accommodate that the week after, Bobby Green did something very, very similar, if that's the case, right? Yep. But this is not the same quality fight, obviously, right off the bat. Renato Moicano, I believe, recently had a big come from behind win, if I'm correct, Matt. Over Alexander Hernandez. Second round submission. This is on UFC 271. So he's coming back on very short turnaround here as well. But I would say this is set up for Rafael Dos Anjos to go in and put on a strong performance.
Yeah, shout out to Moicano for stepping in on this fight. He is the last guy that he lost to is actual Rafael Fiziev. So maybe it's him coming in there and showing that he deserves to be in the thick of this division. So
Yeah.
I do think RDA comes away with it, but I think Hanato's got a lot of motivation, little risk, high reward for him to come away with this. But I'm taking RDA.
As far as the rest of the card here, I would like to say it's definitely not a card that the names on it are going to blow you away, but I would say the matchups themselves on this main card specifically are very, very strong. You know, it seems like Greg Hardy is just kicking off every pay-per-view possible. I don't know if that's like a contractual thing. You know, he's almost breaking even on his record at this point. But to his credit, his fights have been exciting. He seems like a good person to kick off a main card with, as far as a heavyweight that's going to get in and out of there in under 2 rounds, probably. I think that's what you can expect to get off of him. I don't know too much about Sergey Spivak personally, but looking at his record, it's again, they're not giving Greg Hardy any like lobs, you know, easy pitches.
No, and I just look at this like Greg Hardy must go to the UFC and he's like, hey, what do you want on your pay-per-view cards? You want guys to get knocked out, right? Well, I'm either gonna knock a guy out or I'm gonna get knocked out. And the UFC is kind of leaning into the Mayweather vibe where they're like, people don't necessarily like Greg Hardy for some obvious reasons. So if he's gonna get knocked out, let's put it on the main card. And if he's gonna knock someone out, that's not bad to have either. So I think for them, it's again a small risk, high reward. You know, to look at the competition, the level of competition that he's faced. You know, coming off a knockout loss to Tai Tuivasa.
So this is 2019, to be fair. So I was going to mention quickly here. It is interesting
that's
looking
Sergey
at the names.
Spivak, though.
Yeah. Hey, oh, so I'm sorry. I thought you were talking
Greg Hardy.
It's just funny,
So
hands up on the screen at the same time.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yes.
Yeah.
So Greg Hardy comes off of that come from behind knockout loss against Tai Tuivasa. This is an opportunity against another person who's got a great record in the heavyweight division. I don't see Greg Hardy going anywhere anytime soon. If this is a fight that he can win, you better bet that the UFC is going to continue to book him on these high profile fights.
Yeah, I was just quickly going through his record here. It is like in the past couple of years, it's like Tom Aspinall beat him. Tom Aspinall has recently come out and knocked out who in the past couple of weeks? He had
Walt Harris, wasn't it?
No. It was like within the past couple of weeks. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, you know what it was? No, I'm sorry. He got announced to main event against Volkov. That's what it was. But either way, Aspinall is a good fighter, a strong fighter. Greg Hardy is a little similar to some of these guys that he's lost to, though, looking at his career record. But you do have to go all the way back to like a guy like Walt Harris knocking him out in 2019. But then shortly after that gets a submission over Tai Tuivasa. So I'm probably going to lean towards Sergey Spivak in this fight. But I'm sure Greg Hardy will have a moment or two where it looks like he's going to steal it away.
Call me crazy here, Len. I think Greg Hardy's coming away with a weird knockout victory here. I think this will be one of those instances where he gets close to being finished, and then maybe Spivak is just a little too aggressive, and Greg Hardy comes away with another one of those victories.
Cool. So in the next fight up on the card here, to quickly go through, we have another banger in terms of these all look like action-packed fights. I have to say, like all of these look like high-paced fights. So Kevin Holland versus Alex Oliveira. Excuse me, the Brazilian cowboy. Yeah. These guys come to throw down every single time they fight, but I do think this is a fight that's made for Kevin Holland to come out and look great. I'm happy to see him at welterweight again, not toying around with both weight classes or anything. And he's been working on his wrestling. So let's see if he mixes in a little of that. But I'm choosing Kevin Holland by, whatever he really wants to in this fight, but it'll be competitive. Oliveira holds his own, especially for the first 2 rounds.
I think Cowboy is one of those weird guys where he just seems like he's too big for 170 pounds, but also just seems too small when he's fighting certain guys. Kevin Holland finally, making 170 pounds his home, I think is the best thing that he can do. He's in a bit of a must-win situation right now because he's coming off of 2 losses and a no contest. A loss against Cowboy Oliveira doesn't do anything for him, and because of that, I think that puts the much needed pressure that he needs to get his head in the game and comes away with a win.
Last up before we get into the main event here, since we've already given our thoughts on the co-main. We have a traditional, like an old school matchup here. We have the striking master in Edson Barbosa, one of the best kickers in all of UFC and all-time UFC for that matter, all-time MMA.
Doesn't he hold the record for most knockouts by leg kick in the UFC?
I believe that is true, but I might be.
He's got like two or three of those bad boys.
He's up there. 100% he is up there. And he is going against more of a traditional grappler in Bryce Mitchell, who I didn't watch the interview, but I know a couple of weeks ago make big waves on the Ariel Helwani MMA Hour with a crazy interview. I might have to go check that one out. But where do you see this one going, Matt? You going with the striker or the grappler?
Normally, I think history tends to point at the grappler in these instances. And this isn't the reason why I'm choosing Bryce Mitchell. If you were to look at Edson Barbosa's last 10 fights, it's really just a checkerboard of win-losses. And to his credit, this guy doesn't catch a break. He's constantly fighting the who's who, perennial top 5 contender in any weight class that he decides to fight in. But he's right now in a situation where I just think that the torch is being passed behind his back, and he's just not really able to keep up with some of those top guys. Last 2 wins coming off of Shane Burgos and Makwan Amirkhani. Both vintage wins, classic Edson Barbosa wins. But when you see how he lost against Giga, that's something that we've seen in the past. We've seen Edson get overwhelmed. And if Bryce Mitchell, the undefeated Bryce Mitchell can...
He's 14-1.
Is he really? I thought he was undefeated. Yeah. It will be interesting to see if he gets his hands on Edson, if Edson's actually going to be able to come up for air. I just think Bryce Mitchell, very physical, very powerful 155-pounder. Let's see how this one goes. I'm taking Bryce Mitchell. I think he grinds out a decision victory.
So I would just say the one piece of information that I do think would be what I would look at for Edson Barbosa. And the reason I think I'll probably pick him is looking at this Marquand Amirkhani fight. Not that him and, Bryce Mitchell are the same level grappler, but I do think they have a similar game plan to themselves. And I believe that Edson Barbosa he has strong takedown defense. And I'm going to bet on his ability to keep this standing and beat up the legs and the body of Bryce Mitchell to really slow down those grappling attempts that come his way. Obviously, to your point, I could see it go the other direction. I could see Bryce Mitchell pull off the finish, but I don't know if he has the striking acumen to make it competitive on that front to get it to the ground,
Interesting.
So I'm going to take Edson Barbosa here.
You wouldn't be you if you weren't going with the crafty vets. So I think that was pretty much expected of me. I want to pull a mulligan on that one loss. I have been trying to track it down, and I'm not seeing that loss on his record officially, both on the UFC website and on Wikipedia.
You do see what I'm seeing though on.
No. I see it. That's why I was thrown off a bit, and I wanted to make sure that I checked into it. But
interesting.
Across the board, he's got 9 submission wins, 5 by decision, and it looks like no losses. So I'll do a little bit more digging. We'll see if we can figure that out. But
Google's not always correct. And okay, so let's wrap things up here with UFC 272, the main event. Colby Chaos Covington versus Jorge Masvidal, Gamebred Masvidal. Where are you kind of landing on this one? Well, what's your thoughts on the drama leading up to it? And then we'll get into our prediction.
Well, this is that tale as old as time. Sophie, how come every time I go to talk, you want to talk? You're very creative and your timing is impeccable. This is a tale as old as time. This is 2 training partners who came in through the ranks together. Colby Covington is a bit of a character in the sense that we don't really know, at least on the surface level, who the real Colby Covington is. At least fight fans know him to be this, laid back, chill, charismatic guy. But the Colby Covington that we've come to know, and I won't say love, but we've come to know, is this loudmouth guy who is ready to punch anybody's face in. He brings a pressure like no one else has really been able to handle other than the champion at that weight class. The drama doesn't really play into this, I think. I think a lot of people are drawn to it. I think the dramas help build this fight and make it a little bit more popular to casual fans. I think that this is going to be a classic skill versus skill fight where it's going to be Colby Covington's pressure against Jorge Masvidal's resilience. Jorge Masvidal's been in plenty of situations where he's losing in a fight, turns on a second or third gear, and is able to completely dominate the person that he's fighting. Whereas Colby Covington is a hammer. Even when he's supposed to be a nail, he continues to be a hammer. I just don't see a fight where Jorge Masvidal goes 5 rounds against Colby Covington and comes away with a win. I think either he gets a finish or gets put down for 5 rounds.
I thought Kamaru Usman had an interesting thought on this fight. And obviously he's in a unique position as to these two guys, as he's fought both of them twice now.
He said he likes both of them, which is really weird.
Yeah. I don't know if he really means that or not. I think he probably enjoys watching them fight, I think, is more what
he's saying. I think that's the obvious reason to say that, right?
But what he said that I thought was interesting is that what the case might end up being here is that both guys are maybe underestimating aspects of themselves versus the other, or underestimating aspects of the other person based on previous knowledge they have from training together. In that Colby's probably saying that Jorge's wrestling is not even close to his, and he's going to be able to take him down at will because he was able to when they were training 4 or 5 years ago. But Jorge's probably improved in that standpoint, and he's always been a pretty good defensive wrestler. But the same thing on the other side, I'm sure, is that George probably beat up Colby a lot in practice on the feet. And now you're probably going to see a little bit of a closing of the gap on Colby's side to make this a lot more competitive. And I thought that was a really interesting standpoint on this fight. And I think it's what I agree with you for the most part, just getting right to it, where I think that gap is probably closed, and Colby has probably surpassed him a little bit at this point because, Masvidal's fought for a long time now. And, he's always been a guy who, if you're a durable enough fighter, he doesn't win a lot of decisions. Historically, his thing was that he lost a lot of close calls to people that he probably should have won. And I could see this going a lot like that, going back to like the Ally Quinta fights or something, where he may have some competitive moments. And I think he'll probably bust up Colby a little on the feet here and there. But Colby's going to be able to dictate where this fight takes place. And is he going to, I could see him very easily smothering, or not easily, but very much so smothering George Masvidal for this 5 rounds.
Yes. And smothering is the right way to put it, because whether he does get Jorge down on the ground or he decides to just muscle him against the cage, we saw how Kamaru Usman was able to do that. But the difference, I think, between Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington is Trevor Whitman. Kamaru Usman was never known as a striker. People feared having to go in the cage against him, not because they were afraid of getting knocked out, but because they thought they were going to get smothered. Somebody that out-smothered Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman. Colby, he has to bring we know he's going to bring the aggression, but he has to land some crisp combinations. He has to be able to gain Jorge's respect on the feet in order to do his greatest work, which I think is going to come in those grappling exchanges. So that's my choice. I got Colby winning this one.
One piece of concern I would have if you're a Colby Covington supporter, and or if you were a Colby, choosing him to win in this fight, with like it sounds like both you and I are going to, is Colby is extremely hittable. He does not utilize head movement at all. And I would look at the Darren Till fight as an example as to what Jorge Masvidal will do if you're leaving your head in the same spot every time you throw a combination. And we just looking at those 2 fights with Kamaru Usman, when Covington cannot choose to wrestle with you whenever he wants to, and he's got to stand in the pocket and engage, you are going to be able to tag him back. And I think that Masvidal obviously has diverse enough striking that if he's given those opportunities, he could make this a short night for Colby Covington. But if I was a betting man, I would be betting on Colby Covington getting the job done here and winning probably by decision.
Yeah, I think you and I are in agreement there. And I wholeheartedly agree with what you said there. I think Jorge Masvidal has probably got one of the most diverse skill sets we've seen from a striker, and he's got some mileage on him. The question that I'll pose to you is, obviously we both got our picks in here. We'd love to hear from the fans. The listeners, both audio, video. We want to hear what you guys think about the fight. But my question to you, Len, is, do you think that knockout of Jorge Masvidal has to do with the mileage of Masvidal? or are we just witnessing another level to Kamaru Usman's game? I guess I'm just curious to whether or not he's really at risk of getting knocked out in this one.
It's a little contradictory for me because I was obviously just as much as everybody else really impressed with his ability to knock out Jorge Masvidal the way he did. Um, but then you look on the flip side, and I think this is where the skill set thing comes to mind, where, maybe with Jorge has to focus a lot more on the takedown in that. So his hands are a little lower. He fell for, a bit more of the fakes and he gets rocked the way he does. But then you look at the last performance against Colby, and I don't think that for all the props that we're giving Kamaru on the growth in the stand-up department, I don't think that last performance against Colby was particularly amazing on the feet. There was a lot of times where he looks robotic and a little rigid, and he gets thrown off balance when he throws hooks, and those rookie things that, obviously I can't throw a great hook either, but it's like I'm not the UFC welterweight champion who's talking about fighting Canelo Alvarez,
and we probably look the same.
So that's where it's a little contradictory to be like, hey, I think his stand-up's gotten a lot better, and it was clever what he did against Jorge Masvidal, but I think the opponent makes some of that, and it could be the same way here when we see how good Colby's stand-up can look against some of these guys, but then you see the way he fights against Kamaru, and he's a little bit behind him. I think he might just be a step ahead. We said after that fight between Colby and Kamaru that they're the number 1 and 2 guys in their division. And I think that there's a fairly good gap between the rest of the division at this point. And you say that at welterweight, where it's this uber competitive, these really tough guys. And you have a guy obviously coming up through the ranks soon is going to be, what's his name?
Khamzat.
Thank you. Chimaev. Yeah. So for the moment, they're the 2 best guys in the division. And I think that Jorge is probably in the middle of the top 10 at this point. He's 5 to 7 range. He's going to be competitive with a lot of guys, but I think we've seen the last of him in that upper echelon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. This mileage is eventually going to take its toll. And we've already talked about Gilbert Burns, Khamzat Chimaev just got announced. Those type of fights are going to be the fights that get announced, and we're like, okay, these guys are in the top 5. I just think Jorge Masvidal, while he's always going to have that name, he's obviously still carrying around that silver BMF title. He's always going to be able to bring some pop to it, but eventually it just becomes a novelty. I hope we don't find out that it's a novelty with this fight. You hate to see him get knocked out in the first round or something like that. So it should be interesting. Our picks are in, and I think that's all the news we've got for Fight Talk so far, right, Len?
For sure. Let's move on. Let's close things out here, Matt. If you'd want to share with anybody any stuff you're maybe looking forward to watching this week, or if there's anything you've started watching in the past week, and I'll close us out with my really quick Batman thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So obviously things getting into another shout out. I'm going to be on Hey Archer Live this Thursday, March 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, not Pacific. But I'm pretty interested. Me and a friend of ours are actually going to catch Jujutsu Kaisen, awesome anime that kind of took the world by storm, that released last year. Hasn't gotten its second season. Second season's been pushed back. So to get this movie gives us a little bit of an origin story, gives us a little bit more insight into some of our favorite characters. Super excited to go check that out. And I also think that I will be going to catch, not sure when, but I am going to go catch the new Batman film, and I'm super excited for that. Hoping to catch it before we jump back in here, either virtually or in the studio next week. So I'm super excited about that. I'm interested to see what everybody else has got going on, but what do you got going on, Len?
So like I said, coming off last week, I actually started playing Uncharted again, the 4th game. I upgraded to the PlayStation 5, better graphics edition. I'm 10 or 11 chapters in, still a really fun game. If you've never played any of the Uncharted's before and you're itching to maybe play a single player game that you don't have to commit to trying to find people to play with you online, and you can kind of get that movie experience that's more interactive though at the same time, I would definitely recommend that. And I will jump into Batman from there, because I am going to say I'm probably going to see that again in the next 5 or 6 days. I'd imagine it is a big commitment. Obviously 3 hours of your day is going to be taken by that. But real quick, so my movie going experience, I saw this at a fan first AMC release. one of the more interesting aspects is generally I show up to movies like 10 or 15 minutes late, or I give myself a 10 or 15-minute buffer because of trailers, right? I go to the movies a lot. I've seen a lot of these trailers either from watching it on here or just seeing it at a previous showing. So I don't show up for those a lot, and I get my popcorn or whatever I get. For whatever reason, I show up at like 7:10 for my 7 o'clock showing. Because of this fan first release, they went right into the movie. So I
Oh,
missed probably, I assume there's like a little bit of a build up credit scene, like an opening credit that because the movie, I didn't really miss a lot in what there was like a voiceover that starts the movie that I missed in it. So I would just say like, yeah, it starts some of the visual things, like it's a very dark movie. I would see it at a good quality movie theater if you can, for
thanks for
two
the heads
different
up.
reasons. Screen quality, like the IMAX or the Dolby Vision theaters, are going to have better contrast, and I think this movie really requires that. So your theaters out there that are still using like old projector
Awesome.
rigs, all that stuff, I would probably avoid that if you can. But secondly, the audio in this movie is, there's just moments where you need that surround sound, like bass rumbling, like feeling, to get everything that's out of this movie. The score is really top notch. One of my favorite scores for a movie that I've heard in a very long time. And with that, like, it just brings you even further into the movie with that better sound. So that would be one of my
Awesome.
first recommendations with it. Uh, the movie itself, for 3 hours, it definitely feels like it's 3 hours because that's a long time to be like in a movie, but I never got up once.
Wow.
I from the very
That's
beginning
saying
of the
something.
movie, the first like 10 minutes, I took a sip out of my drink and my drink was flat. And
Oh
from that moment
no.
on, I kept considering going to get more soda, like a fresh thing of soda. Up until about the end of the second hour, I was like, okay, like I still have 55 minutes left here. Like if I go now, I can probably I'll be back in a minute. I'm like, go to the bathroom real quick and grab the drink. And then every single scene, something would happen, and I'd be like, dude, I'm glad I didn't get up and leave yet. And that just kept
Oh,
happening. And all of a
oh,
sudden,
that's great.
so one of the best things I would say is for a 3 hour movie, there every single scene seems like it's important. And I know there's a director's cut out there because there's little things that you're missing that could fill in the gaps on some stuff because they wanted to get it under that three hour time. But um long story short, I was satisfied. I was very satisfied leaving it.
That's
I'll
awesome.
leave any fuller review till both of us have seen it, but I would recommend seeing it, definitely.
And I can't tell you how much of a relief that is for me. A lot of the times that you and I embark on these movie excursions, I'm always like, man, I hope I get back into the studio. And he's got good things to say. I'm glad to hear that this was a positive one for you.
Yeah, I didn't come away with this being negative. You can nitpick some stuff, like, this is a Batman movie to me. This isn't a Bruce Wayne movie. You're not, if you're looking for that Playboy Batman, I think they've already told you that wasn't going to be the case. I can confirm for you that this is not Playboy Batman. This is all Playboy Bruce Wayne. He's not that guy. He's much more of a recluse. And it is, like I said, most of the movie is at nighttime. Like almost the entire movie's at nighttime with him being Batman.
That's a welcome change for me because then it's more into the character that is Batman rather than the guy who's banging all the supermodels and waking up late.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to hear the guys over at Nerd Affiliated there, or also Aaron Waller, go ahead and talk about this, because those guys are so much more knowledgeable on the lore of all this, and maybe that's where I feel grateful that I get to go into these movies with just like I'm watching it for the movie Batman that I've always seen, and some of the animated stuff that I know, but I don't have like this like long memory of Batman like comics and stuff to go back on. But I'm excited to hear the take of some of those people out there that I trust know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to this stuff. So I'm gonna check that out. Everybody else should check it out as well. And like you said, you're on Hey Archer live this week. Everybody should hop on there too.
Yeah, everybody go check out Hey Archer Live. Check out Rambling with Anthony, as I like to do. And also check out Aaron Waller, continues to put out great stuff over there. And the next time we'll be hitting you guys, we're hoping to have a full-fledged, not too spoilery. I'm going to start using that since you decided to use that at the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we're coming back in with you guys for next week. But until then, the only way that you can check us out and get hip with all the hot stuff is you got to hit us up on the socials and you got to follow the channel. So where can they find us, Len?
So you could always swing by Twitter. see some retweets, some tweets, and all the like at Good Taste Live on there. I know we're also on Instagram where we post like polls and pictures and the like.
Yeah, we try to get into the movie art stuff and try to stay away from the overly criticisms of certain videos and things like that. But they can check out our polls, check out some of the stories that we dropped over at For Those
You
with
know
Good
they can
Taste.
check out our polls, dude.
You see what I did there? But we're over on at For Those with Good Taste, and then they can catch us where all the audio podcasts can be found. You've got Apple Podcasts, you've got the Google Play Store for podcasts, we've got Deezers, Spotify,
Stitcher.
These nuts, Stitcher, Stitch that, Stitch this.
Jeez.
Get in on the fun, guys. Well, hit us with a subscribe, hit us with a like, and let us know how you're feeling in the comments, because we love coming in here and having fun with you guys. Len, webisode number 2, this was awesome. We had Sophie chiming in the entire time, so obviously it's a great time for me.
Yeah, I think people are going to come away from this episode being like, is she Stat Guy?
Well, I think that they know that we usually bleep Stat Guy out or like erase his voice, so there wasn't doing any of that today, and Sophie's keyboard ability is a little bit better than mine, so I don't think she's qualified to be Stat Guy either.
No,
but
she didn't get that.
The mystery remains.
Yeah, she didn't get that from her dad, the keyboard ability.
No, well, thankfully she gets a lot of her good qualities from her mom.
But yeah, this has been fucking fun, guys. So until next week, we'll see you soon. Let us know what you think. Hit us up wherever. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Love you guys. Take it easy.
For those with good taste.